Are you eating blueberries because you believe they are one of the healthiest foods on the planet, yet you still struggle with low energy, stubborn weight, or unpredictable blood sugar after your morning meals? There is a very good chance the problem is not the blueberries themselves, but what you are combining them with. And this one mistake is far more common than most people realize. Here is what is really happening inside your body. Blueberries are rich in natural compounds that help calm inflammation, support blood flow, protect your cells from oxidative stress, and improve the way your body handles glucose. But these benefits only show up when blueberries enter a metabolic environment that allows them to work. When they are paired with the wrong food, their natural power becomes diluted, delayed, or completely blocked. This matters because the way your body manages glucose in the morning sets the tone for your entire day. A gentle rise in blood sugar gives you steady energy, clear focus, and balanced appetite. A sharp spike followed by a fast crash creates the opposite experience. You feel hungry too soon, you lose mental clarity, your metabolism becomes stressed, and over time, these repeated spikes begin to shape how your liver stores fat, how your muscles respond to insulin, and how efficiently your cells convert food into energy. In this session, I want to show you the root cause behind this blueberry pairing mistake. I will explain why combining blueberries with certain types of carbohydrates creates a metabolic traffic jam inside your gut and liver, and how this changes your insulin response. I will walk you through a simple visual analogy to make the physiology clear, so you can understand exactly why your body reacts the way it does. Most importantly, you will learn how to use blueberries in a way that truly supports fat burning, hormonal balance, cardiovascular health, and healthy aging. I will guide you through clear strategies that show you when to eat blueberries, what to pair them with, and how to unlock their full protective potential. When most people think about blueberries, they imagine a food that improves blood sugar, protects the brain, and reduces inflammation. And that is all true. But there is a hidden detail we rarely discuss. Blueberries do not operate in isolation. They behave differently depending on the food environment that surrounds them. To understand why, we need to look at what happens inside your body within the first few minutes of eating. Here is what is really going on. Blueberries contain a naturally modest amount of fructose along with powerful phytonutrients. By themselves, they enter the bloodstream slowly, giving your body time to process both the natural sugars and the protective compounds. But the moment you combine them with dense, high-starch carbohydrates, the entire situation changes. These carbohydrates break down rapidly into glucose, and your bloodstream becomes flooded with simple sugars at a pace your body does not appreciate. What the research shows is that this combination leads to exaggerated glucose and insulin curves because the starches digest much faster than the natural fruit sugars. Your body responds as if it is under metabolic pressure. The pancreas works harder. The liver receives a rush of mixed fructose and glucose at the same time, forcing it to prioritize storage instead of antioxidant protection. The very compounds in blueberries that are supposed to help your metabolism now struggle to reach your tissues in an effective way. This is why so many people eat blueberries with a popular breakfast food and then wonder why they feel hungry again within a short period of time. A quick spike followed by a sharp drop in blood sugar triggers cravings, irritability, and a feeling of low energy. It is not the blueberries causing the problem, it is the combination. The core message here is simple. Blueberries are powerful when they are given a clean metabolic environment. When they are mixed with the wrong food, their natural benefits are forced to compete with high-speed carbohydrates that overwhelm the system. This is the starting point for understanding how to use blueberries correctly so they become a metabolic advantage rather than a metabolic challenge. The second key insight begins with understanding why certain high-carbohydrate breakfast foods create such a powerful metabolic disturbance when eaten with blueberries. On the surface, it seems harmless. You have a bowl, you add something starchy for energy, and you sprinkle blueberries on top for antioxidants. But inside your body, the moment these foods meet, the physiology shifts in a direction most people never notice. Here is what is really going on. High-starch foods, especially those that are heated or processed, break down at a dramatically faster rate than the natural sugars in blueberries. The enzymes in your saliva and your small intestine recognize these starches as simple fuel. They convert them into glucose rapidly, often within minutes. This creates a sudden wave of sugar entering the bloodstream. On its own, your body can handle this surge, though it requires a strong insulin response. But when blueberries are part of the same mixture, their slower-moving natural sugars get swept into the acceleration created by the starch. Imagine once again the digestive highway. When starches enter the system, they behave like vehicles that suddenly increase their speed far above the flow of traffic. They race ahead. Everything around them is pulled forward. When blueberries travel alongside these fast-moving carbohydrates, they are forced into the same momentum. Their natural nutrients, which normally enter the bloodstream in a steady, controlled manner, now arrive in an environment dominated by rapid glucose absorption. What the research consistently shows is that when fast-digesting starches and fruit sugars appear together, the body does not treat them individually. Instead, it treats them as one large metabolic event. Your blood sugar rises more quickly, your insulin rises more sharply, your liver receives a combination of glucose and fructose in a unified wave. This creates what many researchers describe as metabolic clustering, a state in which several metabolic processes occur at the same time, placing more pressure on the system. This clustering is important because it changes how the liver prioritizes its work. In a normal state, the liver can comfortably process natural fructose from fruit and support antioxidant recycling. But when large amounts of glucose accompany that fructose, the liver shifts its focus toward regulating blood sugar. It becomes overwhelmed. The beneficial compounds in blueberries now have reduced access to the pathways where they deliver their protective effects. This is why people often feel a rapid rise in energy, followed by an equally rapid decline when they combine blueberries with certain starches. The body experiences a strong metabolic pull, followed by a sharp settling. It is not a smooth line. It is closer to a roller coaster. And over time, this repeated pattern begins to influence how sensitive your cells remain to insulin and how efficiently your metabolism uses energy. Understanding this dynamic is essential. Blueberries alone encourage a calm, steady metabolic rhythm. High-starch foods demand speed and intensity. When the two collide, the faster system overtakes the slower one, and the natural advantages of blueberries become diminished rather than amplified. To truly understand why this food combination becomes problematic, we need to look at a mechanism that almost nobody talks about, yet it shapes the entire metabolic response to a meal. That mechanism is stomach emptying speed. The rate at which food leaves your stomach determines how quickly sugars enter your bloodstream, how forcefully insulin rises, and how your liver organizes its workload. And blueberries, by their nature, are designed to move through this system at a calm, steady pace. But the moment they are paired with dense, rapidly digested carbohydrates, the rhythm changes entirely. Here is what is really going on inside your stomach. Blueberries contain fiber and natural compounds that slow down digestion. This allows their nutrients to enter the small intestine gradually, giving your body time to process their sugars and absorb their protective polyphenols. But when you combine blueberries with foods that break down quickly, the stomach senses a different kind of load. The fast-digesting starches signal the stomach to empty sooner because the body prepares for rapid glucose absorption. As a result, everything in the stomach, including the blueberries, exits at the same accelerated rate. Research into gastric emptying shows that mixed meals are governed by the component that digests the fastest. This means that no matter how gentle the blueberry profile is, the faster carbohydrate will dominate the timing. When this happens, your small intestine is suddenly presented with a rush of both glucose from the starch and fructose from the blueberries. The pancreas responds with a strong insulin release because the rise in blood sugar is more abrupt than your body expected. The liver receives an unusually dense combination of sugar molecules arriving at the same moment, and this forces it into what researchers often describe as metabolic prioritization. In metabolic prioritization, the liver must quickly decide what to process first: Under normal circumstances, it can handle fructose from fruit slowly and carefully, guiding it through pathways that support antioxidant regeneration and energy production. But when large amounts of glucose arrive simultaneously, the liver shifts its focus toward preventing dangerous spikes in blood sugar. This means that the compounds in blueberries that normally support cellular protection, inflammation control, and vascular health get pushed aside in the hierarchy. This explains why people often feel an early surge of energy after this combination, followed by a mid-morning crash that interrupts focus and mood. The body is responding not to the blueberries themselves, but to the altered pacing forced by rapid carbohydrate digestion. The natural steadiness of blueberries is replaced by a metabolic pattern that feels abrupt, unbalanced, and difficult for the body to smooth out. The deeper message is this: timing inside the digestive system is just as important as the nutrients you eat. When fast and slow fuels collide, the faster one always wins. And when that happens, the benefits of blueberries do not get the metabolic environment they need to work effectively. To understand the next layer of this problem, we need to shift our focus from the stomach to the liver. The liver is the true command center of metabolic health. It determines how efficiently you burn fat, how stable your blood sugar remains, how well your hormones communicate, and how clean or congested your internal environment becomes over time. When blueberries enter your system on their own, the liver handles them with ease. But when blueberries arrive alongside a surge of fast-digesting carbohydrates, the liver becomes overwhelmed in a very specific way. Here is what is really happening inside your liver. Blueberries contain natural fructose in small amounts, and your liver is uniquely designed to process fructose carefully. It breaks it down slowly, uses part of it for energy, and channels the rest into pathways that help regenerate antioxidants inside your cells. This is why blueberries are so protective for your cardiovascular system, your brain, and your mitochondria. But this elegant process depends on a stable metabolic environment. The moment you add a high-starch food into the mix, the flow of nutrients entering the liver looks completely different. The rapidly absorbed carbohydrates release a large wave of glucose into the bloodstream. Your pancreas responds by releasing insulin, which signals your cells to pull glucose out of the blood. Meanwhile, the liver becomes the backup system. It must absorb the extra glucose that your cells do not take in quickly enough. At the same time, the fructose from the blueberries is arriving. Now the liver is receiving two different sugars, both demanding processing at the exact same moment. This is what metabolic research shows again and again. When fructose and glucose arrive in a high-density mixture, the liver shifts away from antioxidant support toward storage and regulation. The liver begins converting more glucose into glycogen, and when those stores fill, into fat. The fructose from the blueberries, which normally support cellular protection, is redirected into pathways that do not provide the same benefits. The protective phytonutrients in blueberries still enter circulation, but they do so in a landscape dominated by insulin elevation and glucose management. Their impact becomes weaker because the liver is operating under pressure. Over time, this repeated pattern influences the long-term health of your metabolism. The liver becomes more prone to storing fat. Insulin resistance begins to develop quietly. The metabolic machinery that is meant to run smoothly now faces friction. People often do not feel this directly at first. Instead, they notice subtle signs such as mid-abdominal heaviness after eating, rising cravings for sweet foods, or a growing difficulty losing weight despite eating what they believe are healthy meals. The central message is this: blueberries are built to support liver health, but they require a calm metabolic environment to do so. When the liver is flooded with fast-digesting carbohydrates at the same time, it cannot give blueberries the priority they need to deliver their full protective power. The next layer of this picture involves something most people feel every single day, yet rarely trace back to their morning meal. That factor is hormonal balance, specifically the hormones that govern hunger, satiety, and energy stability. When blueberries are consumed alone, they tend to support a calm hormonal profile. But when blueberries are mixed with fast-digesting carbohydrates, the hormonal response becomes erratic, and this is where many people begin to experience cravings, afternoon fatigue, and difficulty controlling appetite. Here is what is really happening inside your hormonal system. Your body uses several hormones to regulate hunger: Two of the most important are ghrelin, which signals hunger, and leptin, which signals fullness. Under normal circumstances, blueberries help promote a steady release of glucose, which supports balanced ghrelin and leptin rhythms. The body remains stable. Appetite follows a predictable curve. However, when blueberries are paired with foods that cause a rapid rise in blood sugar, the hormonal story changes dramatically. The sharp glucose spike triggers a strong surge of insulin. Insulin rises quickly, pushing glucose out of the bloodstream. But as insulin pulls glucose down faster than your body expected, something else happens. Ghrelin begins to rise prematurely. You feel hungry again sooner, even though you just consumed a meal. The body interprets the rapid drop in blood sugar as a sign that it needs more fuel, even if total calories were already sufficient. Metabolic research has shown that mixed meals containing both fruit sugars and rapidly absorbed starches create a sharper ghrelin rebound compared to meals with fruit alone. This rebound is why people often describe feeling energized at first, then craving something sweet or starchy shortly afterward. It is not a lack of discipline. It is not poor willpower. It is a biological response created by the combination of foods entering the system at conflicting speeds. This mismatch also affects leptin sensitivity. When insulin spikes repeatedly, leptin signaling becomes less clear. The brain receives a blurrier message about fullness. Over time, this makes it harder to feel satisfied from normal meals. Even if the total energy intake is appropriate, the hormonal messaging becomes distorted. The natural satisfaction that should follow eating does not arrive on time. These hormonal shifts are powerful because they influence not only appetite, but also mood, focus, and decision-making. When your hormonal system swings back and forth, your energy becomes harder to predict. You may find yourself grazing throughout the day, even when you believe you are eating responsibly. This pattern slowly shapes long-term metabolic health by influencing both behavior and physiology. If this breakdown is helping you understand your body more clearly, consider subscribing. I share daily explanations like this to help you build health through knowledge rather than confusion. The deeper message is that blueberries support hormonal steadiness, but when they are forced into a chaotic metabolic environment, the hormones that control hunger and fullness become disrupted. The body responds to the speed of digestion, not the intent of the meal. And when fast and slow fuels are mixed, the hormones follow the faster signal, not the healthier one. At this point, the final insight brings everything together into a single, clear understanding of why blueberries lose their metabolic power when they are paired with the wrong foods. It is not simply about sugar. It is not simply about digestion speed. It is not simply about hormones. It is about the entire internal environment that forms the moment different types of fuels enter your system at the same time. This internal environment determines whether blueberries operate as a metabolic enhancer or get reduced to just another source of sweetness. Here is what is really happening inside your body. Every food you eat sends a message to your metabolic system. Some messages are calm and restorative, others are urgent and demanding. Blueberries send a calm message. They introduce antioxidants, polyphenols, and gentle natural sugars that encourage your cells to function with stability. They support the lining of your blood vessels. They help your muscles respond more efficiently to insulin. They encourage your mitochondria to produce energy with less oxidative stress. In other words, they promote a clean, predictable metabolic rhythm. But when blueberries arrive in a system that is already reacting to fast digesting carbohydrates, the message changes entirely. The rapid influx of glucose sends the body into what researchers describe as a state of heightened metabolic urgency. Insulin rises quickly. Sugar transport accelerates. The liver shifts into emergency management mode, controlling the flood of incoming fuel. The protective compounds in blueberries, which normally glide through the system with ease, now enter a crowded biochemical landscape. This pattern matters because your metabolic system adapts to the messages it receives repeatedly. If blueberries consistently enter a chaotic environment, the body learns that pattern. Over time, the organs responsible for metabolic regulation become more reactive and less stable. The subtle benefits of blueberries get overshadowed, not because they lack power, but because the environment does not allow that power to express itself fully. What this means is simple. The internal context in which blueberries are consumed determines whether they act as a metabolic asset or a metabolic passenger. When the environment is calm and steady, their full therapeutic potential emerges. When the environment is rushed and overloaded, their benefits are muted. Understanding this distinction is the key to understanding why one common food pairing disrupts the very advantages people seek when they reach for blueberries. To complete this picture, we need to look at how this food combination influences long-term metabolic programming. Most people think of their metabolism as something that responds to individual meals, but your metabolism is a learning system. It adapts, records patterns, and adjusts its sensitivity based on the signals it receives day after day. This is where the blueberry pairing mistake becomes more significant than a single glucose spike or a momentary drop in energy. It begins shaping how your metabolic machinery behaves in the long term. Here is what is really happening inside your cells. Each time your body experiences a rapid rise in blood sugar followed by a sharp insulin response, your cells must respond quickly to clear the glucose. Over time, if these spikes occur repeatedly, your cells begin to protect themselves by becoming less responsive to insulin. This is the earliest stage of insulin resistance. It does not begin with high blood sugar. It begins with repeated patterns of metabolic urgency. Blueberries are naturally designed to protect your cells from oxidative stress and support insulin sensitivity. But when they are consistently combined with fast-digesting carbohydrates, the protective compounds in blueberries cannot fully carry out their role. The cells receive louder signals from the carbohydrates than from the blueberries. Over time, the dominant pattern is not stability, but stress. This is how metabolic memory works. When fast spikes and fast drops occur repeatedly, the body begins to prioritize short-term protection over long-term function. The liver adapts by storing more fuel. The muscles become less responsive to insulin. The pancreas becomes more reactive. Even the gut microbiome begins shifting toward bacterial populations that thrive in higher sugar environments. These microbial changes influence inflammation, cravings, and even mood. What makes this particularly important is that people often believe they are supporting their health by adding blueberries to a carbohydrate-heavy meal. They feel they are adding something protective. But internally, the metabolic environment determines the impact, not the intention. Blueberries do not automatically override the dominant message of the meal, and when the faster fuels take the lead, the slower beneficial signals get lost. Metabolic research shows that polyphenols, the protective compounds in blueberries, are most effective when insulin levels rise gradually. But when blueberries are forced into a rapid digestion pattern created by fast carbohydrates, the polyphenols reach the bloodstream at a moment when the body is not prepared to utilize them fully. The timing misalignment reduces their influence on inflammation, vascular tone, and cellular repair. This becomes important for long-term goals such as healthy aging, brain protection, and metabolic resilience. When the liver, muscles, and hormonal systems face repeated metabolic pressure, the long-term outcome is not steady energy or stable weight, it is gradual metabolic friction, and this friction builds silently. The deeper message is this: blueberries can only express their full metabolic potential when the internal environment gives them space to do so. When they are consistently mixed with fast-digesting carbohydrates, the body learns a different pattern, one defined by urgency rather than balance. Over time, that pattern shapes the trajectory of metabolic health. The final core insight ties together digestion, liver function, hormones, and long-term metabolic programming into a single concept. The context in which blueberries are consumed determines whether they act as a protective agent or become overwhelmed by competing metabolic signals. This is where the full picture becomes clear and where the science explains what most people experience intuitively but cannot articulate. When blueberries are paired with rapidly digesting carbohydrates, the environment changes entirely. The pancreas responds to a rapid glucose surge, the liver is forced into urgent processing, and the protective compounds in blueberries are diluted in their effectiveness. Hormonal swings follow, creating rapid hunger signals, energy fluctuations, and stress on metabolic organs. Over time, repeated exposure to this pattern shifts the metabolic set point toward heightened insulin responses, reduced cellular sensitivity, and subtle but chronic inflammation. Research in nutritional physiology supports this concept. Studies show that polyphenol absorption and their influence on vascular and cellular function are highest when consumed in a slow, controlled nutrient environment. When the same compounds are introduced in a rapid glucose surge, their bioavailability and effectiveness are significantly reduced. The pattern is consistent across multiple organ systems, including the liver, pancreas, and muscles. The lesson is that blueberries do not operate in isolation. Their benefits are not guaranteed simply by adding them to a meal. The internal metabolic environment, the pace at which nutrients enter, the hormonal response, and the liver's workload dictates whether they act as a metabolic ally or merely a source of sugar competing for attention. Understanding this principle allows us to see why certain combinations, even those considered healthy, can quietly undermine energy, weight control, and long-term metabolic resilience.